Hello everyone, Ian here at AbelCine in Burbank. This is going to be a multi-part series I've put together about the Sachtler V18 and V20 fluid head. But before we get into the fluid heads, we need to talk about the system as a whole, and the best place to start is literally from the ground up. So we're going to start talking about tripods first and the different options for building them and the different feature sets. If I had to make one great general sweeping statement about tripods. It is the difference really comes from the materials that are used to build them. This set of sticks right here are aluminum, and this set of sticks here are carbon fiber. Now, advantages, disadvantages. To make sweeping statements, aluminum legs arguably are going to be a little tougher than carbon fiber in that they can take an impact a little better than carbon fiber. Aluminums are going to be heavier, therefore they're going to cost more to ship, and there's a price to be paid for having to, carry them around all day. Carbon fibers are a fraction of the weight of aluminum, and they come in as many stages. We'll get into stages in just a second. They come in as many stages as their aluminum counterparts. They're just going to be more lightweight, easier to tote around, but they are going to be more expensive for an initial purchase. So once we get those two kind of differences aside, let's go and start at the tripod feet and look at different ways to build. This is called a ground spreader, and as you can see, it is used for surfaces that are flat, man-made surfaces primarily. This would be carpet, tile, concrete, any of those surfaces where it is flat or reasonably flat already. We just put the spreader down and then use it as our base for the support of the tripod. Each of these arms is connected to this center piece here, and at the end I have this little wing nut. If I loosen that, it allows this piece to extend out, and we can increase our support area. The wider the base, the more stable support we have. Also, each leg is connected by this rubber piece, and I can clip this off. You'll see that each leg has a point on it, or 2 points actually, with this little arch, and the arch fits into this disc with a channel. The point of these is if we want to put the tripod legs directly to the ground, and these will dig into the earth and help stabilize the tripod leg. But it's designed so that it's pretty easy to take them on and off relatively quickly, and we can also grab it by the center ring, pull up, and the whole thing comes together for easy transport. This is a set of mid-level spreaders. They differ from the ground spreader in that they do not make contact with the ground. They make contact with different points on the legs of the tripod itself. So you'll notice at the bottom here where we have the claws of the legs, I now have these things called feet attached. The feet are very handy. They are held on with the same type of straps that the ground spreader was. They allow us to very quickly take this in and out of a mode for using it on the ground or a surface. Another nice feature of this is we could use them actually in a combination. So we could have some of them on for a flat surface and some off for groundwork. The mid-level spreader has this center hub here, and if I bring the tripod up just a little bit, you'll notice that I can now rotate this in different directions. And what this allows me to do is to select different resting points for these tripod legs themselves. So I can actually rest at different points, and I can very quickly establish different amounts of stability or the width of the base that will support the tripod legs. These are also made to be able to expand individually, so I can loosen a wing nut here and it will go out. And there's also these little lock knobs on the sides here that allow the mid-spreader to detach itself from the tripod altogether. So they're very handy for various situations where you have multiple levels and you need to create stability for the tripod. Here I've taken it outside onto our loading dock, and this is a situation I got crammed into the corner, and the only place I had to put my third leg was up on one of the steps. The set of sticks that I have here are described as two-stage carbon fiber legs. What that means is that there are two sets of locks on each of the legs, and it allows me to extend the leg in two sections. The advantage of this being that by having two separate stages, we've broken up the total extension length of each of the tubes, therefore making a shorter overall profile of the individual legs. And the shorter the legs are, the lower the camera can sit to the ground, and if we extend the spreaders all the way out, arguably, depending on the model, we can have both baby legs and standard legs in one unit. Before I put the fluid head onto the tripod, I want to look at the top of the tripod itself. And if we look here, it's a round socket, and that's actually known as a 100mm ball. So the V18 and V20 are 100mm socket or ball mounts by default. And the way that they get this measurement, by the way, is I just happen to always have a metric measurement on me. And if you measure the outer diameter of this socket, it is 100mm. The other size in ball mounts is 150, but today we're going to look at the 100 ball socket. And some of the advantages to using the socket mount or ball mount for our fluid head is that it allows us to level the head quickly and easily. So regardless of the surface or the conditions on which our tripod sits, we can always rely on the ball mount to get us a level shot. To put the fluid head onto the 100mm tripod ball, I'm simply going to take this tie down shaft through the center, and underneath I'm going to use my tie down to secure it to the socket. And when we go to level the fluid head, we simply are going to unlock this, move it around until we get it level, and tie down again. You also notice that there's a little red hook right here. This is a really nice little feature that Sachtler has incorporated in these sticks, and what it allows us to do is to help stabilize the tripod. For instance, I could hang a small sandbag off of there. Sometimes we leave the sandbag on the ground, and we have a little sash cord running from the carry strap on the sandbag up to that hook. It's just a nice convenience to add stability to the tripod. At the base of the fluid head will be a little white disc or circle with a fluid inside of it, and this is the bubble level or the spirit level. I call it spirit level because it's filled with the liquid that will not freeze up in cold weather. And what this allows us to do, in combination with the 100mm ball socket we're working with, allows us to undo the tie down and very quickly and easily readjust so that we have level for our shot. At the back of the fluid head is a disc that spins to 16 discrete positions. This is your counterbalance. What counterbalance does is, as the name implies, it will counteract or counterbalance the weight of the camera platform. And they give you 16 discrete positions here because of the varying weight payloads that this fluid head will take. When we go and build the camera onto the fluid head, we'll engage it and you can see how it works in action. We're looking at the front of the head now, and just above the panhandle lock is the Payload Selector. And this is, again, one of these great feature sets that's been built into the 18 and the 20 and allows you to make this extremely versatile. Sachtler understands that you may be purchasing this head for your personal camera setup, but you're also going to want to be able to use this with all types of different cameras and different weight ranges. The Payload Selector allows you to, as the name implies, select how much counterbalance you're going to apply to the fluid head. In the low position, we're going to use the small camcorders in conjunction with the 16 position counterbalance knob that we looked at. If you use a bigger, heavier camera, you simply flip this over to the high position, and now it will give you the amount of counterbalance that's appropriate for heavier cameras. To the left of the counterbalance is the tilt drag positions. On most Sachtlers, you're going to have 7 fluid drag positions for pan and for tilt. So, and a lot of times people simply refer to Sachtler heads as 7 sevens, meaning 7 pan and 7 tilt resistance modes. At 0, we have no resistance on our tilt, and as we progressively go up in number, we get more and more resistance. Now, Sachtler has put these discrete levels of resistance into the fluid head because of, first of all, payload of camera, and second of all, the focal length that you're operating with. Suffice it to say, if you're using a long focal length lens or a very telephoto lens, you're going to want to have very subtle moves. Therefore, we might dial the tension up to 7, whereas with a wide-angle lens, we might be moving very fast to catch something. We want to have very little resistance, so we might dial it down to 2 or 1. At the base of the V20, you have another ring with 7 increments as well. And it works just like the 7 positions on the tilt ring. This is your resistance for the pan. So if I go up in my number, the more resistance I'm going to feel on the pan. The same rules that we used for tilt apply to pan. Generally speaking, the longer the focal length of lens that we have mounted to the camera, the more subtle the move we want to make. Therefore, the more resistance, the more fine or we can feather that move. Whereas if we're on a medium or wider lens and we need to catch something going by us very quickly, we're going to lower that resistance down to 2 or 1 to still get a nice smooth shot, but have a lot less resistance, therefore allowing us to swing the lens very quickly to keep the action in frame. At the back of the top plate is the camera plate. The camera plate detaches from this and secures itself to the base of your camera. And it comes standard with 2 different tie-down screws, one a 1/4 20 and a 3/8/16. These are industry standard sizes, and as an added convenience, at the front of the plate, you'll notice that they have spares. At the back of the fluid head, from operator's point of view, is this red knob. This is the release for the camera plate, and it's a couple-step process to release a camera from the fluid head, and this was done intentionally to make sure that this didn't happen inadvertently. You'll notice if I swing this over, it stops a little short of halfway. It does loosen up the camera plate slightly, but it does not release it from the fluid head. In order for me to take the camera off the fluid head, I had to pull down on this plunger and simultaneously swing it over. And you'll see here's the back of the dovetail of the camera plate. So when we go to put the camera in, we're going to go front to back. And you'll see that it gives you that solid snapping sound, telling you that the camera is now securely locked to the fluid head. I put the camera plate onto my camera, and you'll notice that with this camera, I'm able to use the 3/8/16 and 1/4 20 plates. So it's nice and secure, it won't shift on me. So I'm going to go ahead and put the camera onto the fluid head, and I'm going to put the front section of the camera plate in first at an angle, and then lower it in and click it in to the back. So I'm going to locate the front, and then I'm going to bring the back in. And you hear that solid click telling me that the plate is now, and the camera is securely locked onto the fluid head. So the first thing I want to do is balance everything, make sure it's all good and balanced. I'll do that. And next thing I want to do, I'm going to unlock the tilt lock here. And I'm going to just very gently lift up on the pan handle. And you can see that with this lens, with this camera body, it's dipping towards the front. So it's a little front heavy. So I'm going to lock this off. I'm going to unlock my top plate, and I'm going to bring it back. I'll put it to the number 1 position and see where we are. Usually just a little bit of an adjustment will take care of this. And it's staying put. So right now I have centered the mass of this camera, or this camera build with this particular lens, to a center point on the top plate, or the top plate has been moved so everything is centered together and it's not moving anywhere. So the next step on this is I'm going to go over here, and I have my payload knob on light, which is great. This is going to fit well with this camera. It's about a 6-7 pound camera build here, I'm estimating. So I'm going to keep that on light, and now I'm going to put the counterbalance into number 2, and I'm just going to move it back and forth. It's already engaging. I can tell already that when I let go, the camera still wants to move just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it to number 3, and I heard a little click there. And this seems like a pretty good place. Now keep in mind, now the counterbalance is doing exactly what it was engineered to do. It's absorbing that fore or aft weight of the camera. So when I go to do a camera move, I'm not fighting the weight of the camera. I'm just exerting enough energy to get a nice move from the head. So I'm going to keep it at my counterbalance position number 3, and then I can simply dial in the amount of tilt that is appropriate for any given move that I'm going to do. And the same is true. I can unlock the pan here, and I can dial in the amount of pan that I want. And based on my focal length, based on the type of action I'll be filming, those settings will be appropriate. That concludes my presentation on the Sachtler V18 and V20 fluid head. Feature-rich fluid heads allow us to work on a vast array of different builds and weight classes of cameras, and features that allow us to get the best shots possible. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.